Surveillance footage captured the moment a 6-story apartment building in Davenport collapsed. The video shows bricks starting to fall before the entire exterior wall gave way and the building came down. Structural engineers quickly labeled the building as unsafe. Nearby, a large transformer, which powered a section of downtown Davenport, presented additional dangers. It took days for crews to turn it off, which held up some rescue and recovery efforts. After the building fell, a search for survivors began, but the building's instability made it very risky for rescue teams.
We did have personnel searching the entire safe area that was deemed safe on Tuesday. Monday, the building was still in motion, and from the structural engineers we had in their evaluation, it was unsafe for us to go in at that point. We are doing the best we can to balance the building conditions and the safety of our response.
Families of the victims and local residents gathered around the site, visibly upset and seeking explanations. There were protests demanding that all people and pets be accounted for before starting any demolition.
People in there or animals, or if you thought anything was in there, like why wouldn't you do everything and anything to get them out and make sure everything's safe?
A lot of heartbreak, a lot of wonder, worry. I've heard there's people missing that still haven't found yet.
5 days later, workers began to stabilize the remains of the building to safely continue recovery operations. Previous inspection reports had shown structural problems, including cracks in the walls, and one report even warned that a wall could collapse at any time, signaling earlier concerns about the building's safety. On a Sunday in Slovakia, the roof of a hockey rink where ex-NHL player Richard Zednik was coaching began to deteriorate. Pieces of the ceiling started falling onto the ice as the roof gradually gave in, eventually collapsing under the weight of accumulated ice and snow. During the collapse, Richard Zednik and the young hockey players he was coaching managed to quickly find safety, squeezing through a narrow gap left in the rink. Afterward, the rink was left filled with insulation and debris, but fortunately, no one was injured in the chaotic event. Earlier on a Friday, a pipe in the Mack family's kitchen burst, probably due to the extended period of below freezing temperatures that week. The family was initially recording the water damage from the burst pipe when suddenly the situation worsened dramatically into what they termed a near-death experience. They witnessed a scary scene as water forcefully streamed out of the pipe, causing major disruptions in the kitchen, moving a large table and breaking glass, which led to shards being scattered all over.
In the video, you can hear us all screaming. You know, I didn't know what to do. I mean, we couldn't stop the water. We couldn't get it turned off. And it was just, I was sick.
Recognizing the danger, the family quickly evacuated to avoid any injuries. The burst pipe caused considerable damage to the kitchen ceiling, sheetrock, floors, walls, and cabinets.
Started to hear a sound and we knew it wasn't good. So we got out of the way and kept rolling, and that's when it all collapsed. Shattered my large kitchen table that was there, and it sent glass shards all over the place.
Despite the extensive damage, the family was thankful that no one was hurt.
What's keeping me going is that I know it could have been a lot worse. It's just material stuff. Nobody was hurt. We can get it fixed.
A contractor would now be needed to repair the kitchen and potentially other affected areas of the home. On May 20th, in Rong'an County, South China, which had been hit by floods, a newly built 3-story building started to show signs of instability. Within just 10 seconds, the building tilted and collapsed into the river. This caused the surrounding roads to cave in, making the situation worse and leading to a tragic accident. The collapse also heavily damaged a nearby bridge. After this, the local government started looking into why the building fell and promised to compensate the building's owner for their financial losses. A vacant brownstone building, long neglected by the city according to neighbors, partially collapsed. The building was visibly falling apart, with window frames and pieces of brick hanging dangerously.
Fire escapes obviously have a problem.
This partial collapse, caught on a security camera, led to the evacuation of nearby residents. Boston's Department of Inspection Services gave the property owner a violation notice, demanding immediate steps to prevent more debris from falling and to protect a nearby fire escape.
We've tried for years to get something done with building. It's an eyesore.
Neighbors have complained for years about the building's poor condition, calling it an eyesore and noting it has been run down for decades.
I often got calls and emails from residents who lived on both sides, the neighbors, and some of the material from the building were falling on their property.
I knew right away what it was. There was no mistaking. It was just like a cascade of bricks.
I knew that the inside's in really bad shape. I never thought that the outside and the bricks would collapse. It was really kind of disconcerting, actually.
Despite these complaints, little action had been taken until this incident. The Georgia Dome in Atlanta, which opened in 1992, was demolished on November 20th, 2017, after being a key spot for sports and entertainment for 25 years. The demolition involved 4,800 pounds of explosives set into about 3,500 holes and set off in a carefully timed order over 12 seconds. This detailed planning was needed because the new Mercedes-Benz Stadium is very close, only 83 feet away. The demolition had its memorable moments too. A MARTA bus famously blocked the live camera view during the demolition, and parts of the dome unexpectedly remained standing, adding some drama to the event. Heavy rain in Charlotte led to a pipe bursting at a local hotel, causing water to flood into the lobby and through the electrical circuits. The entire room was underwater, and people were running around, unsure of what to do.
Insane. I've never seen anything like it. I mean, it's not something that you ever expect to happen, and then the next thing you know, the ceiling's falling down and people are running around. Nobody knew how to react. I have to give the hotel a lot of props because they really did pull it together really quickly, but it was insane. I've never seen anything like it before. It was raining so much, just water was everywhere. It was awesome. I think instinctually everyone was kind of keeping their distance because you could see that it was coming through. I mean, the light fixtures, you can see it's the light fixtures. And, everyone, if you actually see on the video, I kind of panned down, you can see the water coming towards me as it was flowing so quickly. It flooded the whole room. Yes, it has stopped rushing down. To be honest, the rain came and went so fast, but so fiercely that, that's why you can see that obviously the weight of the water, the hotel pipes couldn't even handle it, the magnitude of it. So, it's since receded, and we've been able to keep it under control at the hotel, but pretty awesome experience.
I've never seen anything like it before. The old St. Louis Arena, fondly known as the Barn, was taken down on February 27, 1999, signaling the end of an iconic spot in St. Louis. The demolition, which lasted around 30 seconds, was a significant event that many locals watched, marking a bittersweet moment in the city's history. Built in 1930, the arena had multiple uses over the years, from hosting sports events and concerts to other big gatherings. After the Blues hockey team moved to the newer Kiel Center in 1994, several ideas were considered to repurpose the old arena, but none were realized. In the end, it was demolished to make space for new projects. The site where the arena once stood still holds sentimental value for many who remember it as a lively place full of unforgettable events. The Omni Coliseum in Atlanta, a well-known venue that hosted various sports and entertainment events, was demolished on July 26, 1997. This demolition was part of a larger initiative to update the city's facilities and resulted in the construction of what is now known as State Farm Arena. The Omni had been a key cultural and sports center since it opened in 1972, and it was famous for its distinctive egg crate-style roof. However, the roof's design led to ongoing issues with leaks and rust, exacerbated by Atlanta's humid weather. Despite efforts to renovate and maintain the building, persistent structural problems and the need for more modern features ultimately led to the decision to replace it. On March 26, 2000, Seattle's Kingdome was demolished to clear space for what is now Lumen Field.
Go CDI 10, 9, 8, 7, 6.
This multi-purpose venue had hosted sports teams like the Mariners, Seahawks, and Supersonics, as well as major concerts and events. Financially, King County, which funded the Kingdome, announced on the 15th anniversary of the implosion that it had finally paid off the stadium's debts. These debts, covered by hotel and motel taxes, stemmed from a 1994 emergency repair after tiles fell from the roof. The debt was cleared 9 months early, and any surplus funds were allocated to For Culture, an organization supporting arts and cultural programs. Veterans Stadium in Philadelphia, also known as the Vet, was torn down on March 21, 2004. This famous stadium was the home ground for the Philadelphia Phillies and the Philadelphia Eagles. The demolition took place early on a Sunday morning at 7 a.m. and was carefully planned. It only took 62 seconds for the stadium to fall apart after setting off more than 3,000 dynamite charges. Thousands of people watched from the streets, and important people like Mayor John Street, the Philly fanatic, and ex-Phillies player Greg Lazinski were there to set off the ceremonial dynamite.
There goes a little part of my life.
My knees were shaking. It was amazing. It's something I've never seen before. It's sad, really.
The demolition was a big deal because it marked the end of an era in Philadelphia sports. Before it was demolished, Veterans Stadium had been a major spot for sports since it opened in 1971. During a busy morning at the gas station, the canopy gave way under the heavy snow that had piled up from recent storms. It seems the structure was already struggling with the weight of the snow before the day started. The roof collapsing was captured by the station's security camera. At that moment, the station owner was there and dropped to the ground in shock and fear.
Just like a splash, like somebody throws like a big thing into a swimming pool, you know, like you hear a splash, you know. My whole canopy was falling. So right when it was falling to the ground and I saw I fell to the ground, and I was in shock and I was scared.
Luckily, no one was hurt when it happened. The station was out of gas at the time, which probably meant fewer people around under the canopy, helping to avoid any injuries. Picture the ground beneath you starting to fall apart. That'd be scary, right? Well, in this situation, the roof those three were standing on started to collapse. It was a close call for 3 firefighters in Dearborn, Michigan. The roof gave in while they were on top of a burning building, which housed a dry cleaning business. They managed to get out just in time, thankfully, with no serious injuries. It was a scary moment for them. The RCA Dome was demolished on December 20th, 2008, in Indianapolis, Indiana. It was where the Indianapolis Colts NFL team played from 1984 to 2008. The demolition was carefully planned, using explosives to bring it down safely. Experts made sure nearby buildings and people were safe.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Oh, that's awesome.
The company in charge didn't want a big crowd, but some Colts fans still came despite the cold.
It was awesome.
No, that was really fast.
There goes my good seats I used to have.
Whew. I can't believe that for one of the monster truck rallies, I was sitting right there. Boom. Boom. Boom, boom, boom. And I was like, whoa, they must be detonating. And then I saw part of it go down, and I was like, they are going to do the whole thing.
Was it worth the wait? It's a little cold, but it's worth it.
It's 9:07. Why can't we?
Oh, they're late.
It's cold.
I think my toes are falling off.
Well, we're only 23 minutes late.
Oh.
Sure, that's on time for somebody.
I've seen YouTube videos of implosions like this one, and the RCA. Oh man, look at that dust.
It's worth it. It was cool. I partied here lots and seen all the games here, so sad to see it go.
For Indianapolis sports fans, it marked the end of an era since the Dome hosted many NFL games, basketball tournaments, and concerts. The Texas Stadium, home of the Dallas Cowboys for 38 years, was demolished on April 11, 2010. The stadium, which had been the site of many famous football games and cultural events, came down in an implosion. An 11-year-old named Casey Rogers, who won a local essay contest, set off the implosion using 1.5 tons of explosives. Thousands of people watched, and seismologists even used the opportunity to study the Earth's crust by measuring the seismic waves produced. The stadium was torn down to make room for a new highway project. For fans and locals in Irving, Texas, the demolition was a bittersweet moment, and it also provided valuable data for scientific research. Security cameras recorded the roof collapsing at a thrift store in Anchorage on March 4, 2023. Fortunately, the store was closed and empty, or the situation could have been much worse. Some residents in Longwood, Florida, were already upset about ongoing problems in their apartments, including significant water damage they blamed on previous flooding issues. The situation got worse when one of the apartment ceilings collapsed, an event captured on camera that showed debris falling until the entire ceiling was down. More video showed severe water damage and big holes in the ceilings of both a bedroom and a bathroom. The landlord, Abraham Joseph, mentioned that the building struggled financially during the pandemic and was changing owners, which delayed repairs.
My son was laying down when the whole water started coming down from there, because it didn't come down little by little. Everything damaged, TV, clothes, sneakers, everything.
The whole ceiling, half of the ceiling came down. 3 minutes, literally, after my daughter got out that shower. My fear is for this building to collapse.
He said he offered the affected residents other options like moving to an empty apartment, staying in a hotel, or transferring to a building that accepts Section 8 housing. In the morning, a family in Springfield, Virginia, saw a crack in their dining room ceiling. By the afternoon, the ceiling had completely fallen down. The family's son recorded the whole thing on video. Luckily, no one got hurt because the family had seen the crack earlier and avoided standing under the weak part of the ceiling. Kolhapur is a historic city in the southwestern part of Maharashtra, India, known for its cultural heritage and historical importance. The city, often called a city of palaces and gardens, is famous for its beautiful landscapes and architecture. On March 19, 2018, a three-story building in Kolhapur collapsed. Fortunately, no one was hurt because the residents had already left their homes. From the video, it's clear that the building was very old and simply fell apart due to its age. On April 3, 2024, a 7.4 magnitude earthquake struck Hualien City, Taiwan, setting off many aftershocks, some over 6.0 magnitude. On April 23, another significant aftershock, this one at 6.1 magnitude, hit south of Hualien City. Thankfully, there were no casualties reported from these quakes, but they did cause additional damage. Two multi-story buildings that had been emptied out after the initial quake collapsed during the aftershocks. Video footage shows one building collapsing that had initially survived the April 3rd quake, but couldn't withstand the later shaking. The full hotel in downtown Hualien, which was being renovated and was empty at the time, was left leaning sharply. Another video caught the Tong Shui building collapsing. It was also vacant, already marked for demolition after the April 3rd event. The April 3rd earthquake was the strongest to hit Taiwan in the last 25 years. A footbridge in Kinshasa, Democratic Republic of Congo, gave way during its opening ceremony on September 5, 2022. The bridge started to buckle and fell into the stream below right as the ribbon was being cut. Luckily, no one was injured in what turned out to be quite a dramatic scene. It seems the ribbon was the strongest part of the whole setup. Perhaps they should have considered using the ribbon's material for the entire bridge. On July 29, 2016, around 2 p.m., a significant section of ceiling tiles suddenly began to collapse in a passageway at the Siping Road station in Shanghai. At the time, 3 passengers were caught in the collapse and were seen fleeing the area in panic as the tiles fell for several seconds. Fortunately, despite the chaos and potential danger, no one was hurt.
我们立即跟公安相配合，封闭了该区域，关闭了该出入口，然后我们工作人员引导相关人员从其他的出入口进出车站， 然后我们再去到现场确认，没有发现有任何人受伤。经过现场勘查，我们发现呢，这地方的局部的吊挂件在潮湿的作用下锈蚀，它的牢固度下降。那么在当天的超强的风压差的共同作用下呢，造成了吊顶板的脱落。
The local subway authority confirmed that the incident resulted in no injuries. In 2008, during scheduled maintenance at West Farmers Curragh coal mine in central Queensland, a less experienced operator mistakenly pulled the wrong lever while attempting to lower the dragline boom. This error caused the winch to go into freefall rather than descending slowly. In a frantic effort to manage the situation, the operator tried to stop the freefall using the drum brake, which overheated from the intense and abrupt use, eventually exploding and starting a fire.
It's been nearly 15 minutes.
No, it hasn't. 7. 7 since they started moving. Oh!
The boom was not set at the correct radius, leading to a mechanical collision with the M4600 base Transilift boom. This incident resulted in substantial damage to the equipment and minor injuries to the operator. Alphen aan den Rijn, a town in the western Netherlands, experienced a significant accident on August 3, 2015, during a bridge renovation project at the Queen Juliana Bridge. 2 cranes, positioned on barges to lift a bridge section, collapsed due to the smaller barge's instability, causing the cranes to topple over. Reported the crane collapse from a different angle. The person in a blue shirt narrowly escaped just in time, avoiding what could have been a much worse outcome. The incident resulted in substantial damage to nearby buildings, but miraculously, no injuries were reported. An investigation by the Dutch Safety Board found that the lifting plan was flawed, particularly in how the cranes and barges were arranged, leading to the instability that caused the collapse. On November 17, 2023, a 6.7 magnitude earthquake hit Davao City, Philippines. This quake was part of a series of strong seismic events in the area late that year, notable for how deep it was and its closeness to populated places. Due to the earthquake, a crane on top of a tall building fell.
Gubaw na guba. Oh, grabing gubaw. Nagkurog pa na akong kamot. Wa man ta naka-open ka video. Naka-open ka video. Oo, naka-open ko video.
Although there was a high risk of injuries because nearby houses were so close, fortunately, the police reported no injuries from the collapse. Making sure bridges are high enough for vehicles to pass under is very important for safe transportation. Dispatchers have to carefully plan routes to avoid big accidents. It's not just about the height of the truck, other things can go wrong too, like this example from Italy. On March 1st, 2022, a driver towing an excavator through the Italian countryside followed a planned route but ran into a bridge that was too low. Thinking the route was clear, the driver went ahead and ended up making an expensive mistake. The collision tore the cab right off the excavator and kicked up a cloud of dust that probably blocked the driver's view. Luckily, the bridge was okay, and other cars continued to drive over it without noticing the earlier chaos. A better choice might have been to use a flatbed without sides to carry the machine, letting the arm hang lower than the truck's roof, put a sign indicating it was an oversized load, and be extra careful to prevent such accidents. The Red Road Flats in Glasgow, Scotland, were once the tallest residential buildings in Europe, consisting of 8 high-rise towers. On October 11, 2015, a demolition was planned to bring down 6 of these towers with a controlled explosion. However, the demolition didn't go as planned. 2 of the towers did not fully collapse, leaving large sections standing.
Fell up. Uh-oh.
As a result, over 2,000 residents who had been evacuated couldn't immediately return to their homes due to safety concerns. The Red Road Flats, built in the 1960s to accommodate Glasgow's growing population and later known for various social issues, had become symbols of a past era. Their demolition was aimed at revitalizing Glasgow's urban landscape. The Crawford Station, a coal-fired power plant built in 1924 in South Lawndale, Chicago, Illinois, operated for nearly a century before closing in 2012 due to community concerns over pollution. By the time it shut down, it was one of the last remaining coal-fired facilities in a major U.S. city. Demolition was scheduled for 2019, but the process was troubled from the start. On December 30th, 2019, a tragic accident occurred when a worker fell to his death, leading to a temporary halt in demolition and a lawsuit filed by his widow. Demolition resumed in January 2020, and on April 11, 2020, the plant's concrete smokestack was successfully imploded. However, the implosion covered the nearby Little Village neighborhood with toxic dust, prompting the mayor to issue a stop work order and residents to file a class action lawsuit. News coverage showed locals navigating through thick, toxic dust, highlighting the disastrous handling of the demolition and raising questions about the planning process. Check out these 2 guys in this video. It's a perfect example of a big blunder. They were supposed to unload crates from the truck, which looked like they contained glass bottles. However, things quickly went south. The moment they pulled the handle of the containers, they realized their mistake and ran off. It's likely someone's going to be out of a job after this, don't you think? A crane was being used at a construction site near East Smith Street in Princeton, close to Advent Health in Orlando. The project, managed by Finfrock, was supposed to finish a 10-story parking garage by the end of 2022. While workers and nearby residents were going about their day, the crane suddenly fell and hit the parking garage.
Reality is we didn't have a complete and total failure of the building, which would have been another incident. We won't make any speculations on what caused the accident. Our main concern right now is making sure that we have done everything that we need to do to make sure that the area is safe.
And all of a sudden we heard a big boom, power went out, and everybody ran outside and just to see what was going on.
Although the garage was badly damaged, it didn't completely collapse. The crash made a loud noise and caused a power outage, prompting people, including Eric Krakowski, who works next door, to come outside to see what was happening. The Orlando Fire Department came to the scene and treated 2 construction workers. One of them was taken to Orlando Regional Medical Center, but was quickly declared to be okay. In 2017, before Hurricane Irma hit, Tareq Spiner SK 315 hammerhead tower cranes were set up at several construction sites across South Florida. On September 10, 2017, 3 of these cranes collapsed on the same day due to the storm's intense conditions. 1 crane fell in Fort Lauderdale and 2 in Miami, with 1 in Miami swaying until its arm broke off. This caused massive counterweights to fall onto a building, resulting in debris like concrete and construction materials dangerously scattering to the ground. OSHA investigators found that all 3 cranes broke in the same way. The long arm, or jib, came off the rotating part called the turntable, causing the top parts of the cranes to collapse. After these incidents, the City of Miami's building department reported that all SK 315 model cranes were removed from the city and hadn't been brought back since. Demolition experts were set to knock down 2 vacant apartment buildings in Seaforth, Merseyside, using explosives. The event drew a crowd of local spectators, as it was planned for both buildings to be demolished at the same time. However, things didn't go as expected. While Churchill House fell as planned, Montgomery did not collapse. Because Montgomery was still standing, residents who had been evacuated had to spend the night in hotels, not knowing when they could go back home. They were frustrated with the lack of updates from the authorities and had to rely on social media and friends for information.
I've had more information and I've been told more off Facebook and friends than I have off them.
Well, who's in charge?
I haven't got a clue. No one's holding their hands up. What did they do in the war years? People just helped each other in the war years. If you had a family, you went to there, didn't you? Same thing.
And we're going to be trying to induce a controlled contract later on today.
What time?
I don't want to give any times at the moment. We're trying to keep people away from the area. It's obviously not a safe activity, demolition.
You don't want people turning up to watch, basically.
We don't want people putting themselves in danger.
Some were allowed back briefly to grab necessities like medicine. In 2019, parts of the United States faced severe weather events, including floods and fires. A particularly strong storm hit Texas, mainly impacting the Dallas area with high winds and significant destruction. During this storm, a large construction crane was filmed collapsing onto an apartment building in Dallas, cutting through it due to the storm's intensity. The collapse led to at least 1 death and several injuries while causing extensive structural damage to the building.
You have 2 people who were listed as critical, 3 who suffered serious injuries but were not critical, 1 person who has in fact been discharged from the hospital already, and 1 person who's been confirmed deceased. The building itself has suffered multiple collapses in different areas.
Some cars were left dangling on the edge of the compromised structure. Additionally, the storm resulted in widespread power outages, leaving about 250,000 people in Dallas County without electricity. At a job site of Boston University, a sequence of large steel beams toppled over like dominoes. The beams almost hit 2 construction workers who were attached to the columns at the site. Emergency teams responded quickly to the incident. The workers were taken to the hospital but were discharged the same day with minor injuries.
Update for EMS. We have 2 construction workers injured here.
A nearby worker, Frederick George, described what happened.
A lot of commotion. The police were kind of keeping people back and everything, and just concerned because it's, the building right next to mine.
The construction company, Sofa Construction, made a statement after the incident, stressing that worker safety is their highest priority, and they are committed to maintaining the highest safety standards to ensure workers return home safely every day. The plan was to demolish an 11-story building with explosives to make way for a new mixed-use project called The Central. When they set off the explosives, everything seemed on track. But after the dust cleared, the core of the building was still standing, leaving the structure leaning.
And you can see the building fall down, and then that tower there just kind of stopped. And everybody went, oh no. And there it is, it's still sitting there. Amazing.
They tried using an excavator to bring it down, but that didn't work because the core and elevator shaft were too strong.
The Leaning Tower of Dallas, there you go.
Next, they planned to use a crane and wrecking ball to finish the job.
We feel like this is we're transforming the next chapter into the next chapter, so it's like a rebirth.
The site is at the corner of Haskell Avenue and North Central Expressway, and the new development will include office towers, residential areas, a park, and entertainment spaces.
The size of the project and the location is phenomenal. We're centrally located, which is where the name The Central comes from.
I'm sure that they'll finish the job and get it down. It's just one of those things.
It's expected to take 4 to 5 years to complete. The roof of a gymnasium in the Czech Republic started collapsing while dozens of players and spectators were inside. As it began to fall, people quickly ran out. They moved fast, but 2 boys still ended up with minor injuries. The building had been recently constructed, and the cause of the collapse is unknown. However, it's clear that there was a significant oversight in the construction process. Elk Grove Village, a small community in northern Illinois with around 32,000 people, was home to the Grecian Delight food processing plant. In 2017, a gas explosion at the plant resulted in many people losing their jobs. The incident occurred early in the morning on July 7, 2017, when a contractor smelled ammonia in the engine room and quickly alerted the maintenance team. A maintenance worker arrived 15 minutes later, but didn't detect any strange smells initially. However, the contractor returned to a strong ammonia smell, found the leak, and evacuated the area right away. The engine room filled with toxic ammonia, making it hard to see. By then, all 100 employees had left the building, just as smoke and fire began to show, followed by an explosion at 7 a.m. that damaged some of the exterior cameras. The only way out led directly to a busy highway. Investigations later identified a faulty small valve as the cause of the ammonia leak and explosion, but the exact cause of the explosion was not determined. Luckily, only one worker suffered minor burns, and a firefighter needed treatment for heat exposure. By August 2018, Grecian Delight faced losses of $26 million from damages, lost products, and other recovery costs. Unfortunately, their insurance claims were denied. If you thought your day was rough, think again. It seemed inevitable that the truck would fall. There was nothing anyone could do about it. The driveway, compromised by poor cement quality, simply gave way under the weight of the truck. It was almost comical to watch. But jokes aside, let's hope the driver and the person standing nearby were all right and didn't suffer any serious injuries. On April 27, 2019, a crane collapsed in Seattle while it was being dismantled at a construction site in the South Lake Union area. The main reason for the collapse was identified as the early removal of pins that held the crane sections together. This action, which went against the manufacturer's disassembly guidelines, greatly reduced the crane's stability. The collapse resulted in 4 deaths and injured several other people. Kandla, located in Gujarat, Western India, is an important seaport about 256 miles from Karachi Port in Pakistan and 430 miles from Mumbai Port. Since its establishment in the late 1950s, it has become Western India's main seaport and a key economic center, handling major imports like oil, chemicals, and machinery for the iron and steel industry. However, on August 26, 2023, there was a significant incident at the port. While trying to load a hydro crane onto a barge, a large crane was used, but things went wrong during the lift. The crane nearly did a complete front flip before crashing down in a cloud of dust. It was evident to onlookers that the crane was overloaded at the backstrap, which was a clear issue during the operation. Thankfully, no one was injured in this costly mishap, although the crane was severely damaged and likely beyond repair. We can describe this scene in one word: hysterical. Look at that crane, shaking and swinging as if it's in an amusement park. Then there are the people, running as if it were their last day on Earth. Notice that one person who tripped in front of the bus? There was definitely a palpable sense of terror at that moment. It's quite odd that despite numerous historical incidents of crane collapses, we still don't seem to recognize any flaws in them, nor do we improve their machinery. Take this crane, for instance, which was likely tasked with something beyond its capabilities. It didn't work out well. The crane just leaned slightly back to one side and lost its balance. It must have been really terrifying for the people who saw it. Cranes and boats just don't go well together. This costly accident proves it, and all we can really say is that the crane operator was fortunate to escape unharmed. The insurance company is in for quite the situation now, and really, pulling the rope now isn't going to help at all. Demolishing an old power plant is a tough job. Not only do you have to safely bring down the building, but you also have to ensure that the debris and residue don't escape into the air and get breathed in by locals. In 2018, the demolition of the Anglesea power plant in Australia proved challenging. Many people showed up to watch from a safe distance, some waiting over 3 hours to get a good view. The demolition was set for noon, but by 2 p.m., the power plant was still standing. Finally, an explosion caused 2 steel structures on either side of the plant to fall, but most of the 6-story building remained intact. To make matters worse, locals were concerned about potential asbestos exposure after seeing the amount of smoke and debris in the air. The company responsible claimed everything was under control, but others argued that they hadn't taken all the necessary precautions before the botched demolition, resulting in a failed operation. Can a train derail while parked? These guys proved that it can.
Stop! Stop! No!
This incident caused thousands of dollars in damage. Clearly, someone didn't do their job properly. In a busy city in Guangdong Province, China, with nearly 4 million people, there was a shocking event on April 13, 2021. Workers were painting lines on the sidewalk in an area with many manhole covers, 7 to be specific. At first, everything was going fine until they started hearing a rumbling from underground. It wasn't clear what the lines were for. They might have been for parking spots, painted by the same machine. While moving on to paint the next line, something unexpected happened. Right after finishing the second line, an explosion sent a manhole cover flying 20 feet into the air. It turned out that a road crew laying asphalt nearby had accidentally sparked a flame that traveled into the sewer, igniting methane gas present from decaying natural materials. Methane, which is usually found in septic systems and is explosive even in small amounts, as little as 5% in the air, caused the explosion. Normally, methane doesn't smell, but it gets a rotten egg odor when gas companies add hydrogen sulfide to it. Even the smallest mistakes can end up costing a lot more than you might think. This video clip shows just that. A forklift that was just moving around the warehouse took a wrong turn and crashed into a stack of goods. Almost instantly, a huge pile of boxes, containers, and other items toppled over, causing complete chaos in the warehouse. The mess was so bad that you couldn't even see the crane under all the debris. If you think piloting a ship is easier than driving a car or truck just because it's all water, the person steering the ship will quickly show you it's not. We can only hope there were no injuries, but one thing is certain: the damage cost thousands of dollars. This is a crane positioned on a bridge, apparently trying to retrieve a tree or something similar from the water. It's not confirmed if it's really a tree, but a bit of guessing doesn't hurt. Everything looks normal, but suddenly, the crane collapses as if it can't handle any more of this harsh world. Understandably, people nearby rush over to check on it. On December 26, 2004, a devastating 9.1 magnitude earthquake off the coast of Sumatra, Indonesia, triggered a massive tsunami that affected 14 countries, including India, Sri Lanka, Thailand, and even sent waves as far as Africa and California.
It's a good 15, 20 feet tall. Easy.
It was early in the morning on December 26, 2004, when many tourists were enjoying their Christmas vacations under the sun, likely planning a relaxed Boxing Day following the festivities of Christmas Day. No one could have anticipated or even imagined what was about to unfold. At that time, the awareness of tsunamis and their warning signs was not as widespread as it is today. Tragically, the earthquake that triggered this tsunami occurred so far out at sea along the fault line that its effects weren't felt in many coastal areas. This led to several stealth tsunamis, which, instead of prompting immediate evacuation from the shoreline, inadvertently drew people closer to the very heart of the danger.
Was da hinten abgeht?
Irgendwie ein Seebeben gewesen sein, das ist Wasser.
Na.
In many resort areas, the sea mysteriously began to recede, drawing foreign tourists and some locals to the exposed shorebed in awe. Boats lay stranded on the newly visible ground, where they would normally be floating on crystal-clear waters. On the horizon, many observed what appeared to be a white rolling trough approaching, with some curious about what was coming their way. Unfortunately, the reality of the situation became clear only when it was tragically too late, leaving absolutely no escape. The tsunami waves, traveling at hundreds of kilometers per hour, reached heights of up to 100 feet and surged as far as 10 miles inland in some places. The devastation was beyond comprehension. Entire villages were obliterated in seconds as the waves crashed ashore with overwhelming force. Many of the affected islands were quite flat, and their shorelines had steep inclines, which amplified the height of the tsunami waves. While we can attempt to describe the devastation caused, the footage of the event truly speaks for itself, capturing the scale of destruction and the dramatic impact of the waves more vividly than words ever could. In India alone, the tsunami displaced over 5 million people due to its powerful surge, flooding everything from shorelines to train stations. The tsunami was relentless, causing devastation to anything in its path. The 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami starkly demonstrated the immense destructive power of nature when unleashed upon humanity. The stories of survivors who could only watch helplessly as their loved ones were swept away by the powerful waves are deeply heart-wrenching. Some were fortunate to be reunited with their families days later, while others were not so lucky and have faced immense struggles trying to come to terms with the tragic events that unfolded.
What on earth is that noise? And he got up and he opened the curtains and he had a look of horror on his face. And then everything else just started crashing back and rising up above my head. As well as pushing me backwards, it then started to push me under. And then I just remember thinking, I hope it's quick.
The tsunami of 2004 was one of the deadliest natural disasters in history, claiming approximately 230,000 lives across 14 countries. For the nations around the Ring of Fire fault line, where earthquakes and tsunamis are relatively common, such disasters are not new and, unfortunately, won't be the last to cause severe damage to their coastlines and communities. These catastrophic events underscore the immense power of nature and the rapid destruction tsunamis can unleash. Despite advances in technology and preparedness, there is currently no way for humanity to completely halt the force of a powerful tsunami. Time and again, nature has proven capable of scaling seawalls and overcoming other preventative measures. The 2011 Tohoku tsunami in Japan ranks among the most massive, powerful, and deadly natural disasters in recent memory. On March 11, 2011, a 9.1 magnitude earthquake, the strongest ever recorded in Japan, struck off the coast of northeastern Japan. While the earthquake itself was devastating, the real horror began when it triggered a colossal tsunami that swept across the region. Shortly after 3 p.m., tsunami waves began their relentless assault, reaching staggering heights of up to 128 feet, comparable to stacking 19 LeBron James one atop another. The waves, moving at nearly 800 kilometers per hour from the epicenter, smashed through everything in their path, pushing up to 6 miles inland. Despite Japan's advanced technology and preparedness for earthquakes and tsunamis, the sheer force of the tsunami overwhelmed their seawalls. Many residents, although alerted by tsunami warnings, were tragically unprepared for the waves' immense power. The disaster starkly highlighted the overwhelming force of nature and the limitations of human defenses against such catastrophic events. The destruction caused by the tsunami was unimaginable. Entire towns were obliterated in mere moments as the waves crashed ashore with overwhelming force, leaving nothing but ruins and devastation behind. The impact spanned over 500 kilometers of the northeastern coastline, completely annihilating many cities and towns. The sheer scale of the devastation underscored the terrifying power of such natural disasters. The destruction from the tsunami was catastrophic, erasing entire towns or leaving them heavily damaged. Following the earthquake and tsunami, another calamity struck: the meltdowns at the Fukushima nuclear power plant. The tsunami inflicted such severe damage on the facility that it led to radiation leaks, necessitating immediate containment efforts. The extent of the devastation was immense, almost beyond description, with images capturing the biblical scale of the flooding and the sheer disbelief of those witnessing the destruction. The human cost was staggering. Over 16,000 lives were lost in Japan alone. Countless others were left homeless, their communities and lives in ruins. Heart-wrenching stories surfaced of survivors who watched helplessly as loved ones were swept away by the waves, and families who saw their homes and businesses obliterated. Amid the overwhelming devastation, stories of heroism emerged, offering rays of hope. Many individuals bravely risked their lives to rescue civilians from drowning or being trapped under debris from collapsing structures. These acts of bravery in the face of such dire circumstances showcased remarkable resilience and provided glimmers of hope during one of the most challenging times for the affected regions. Over 10 years have passed since this tragic event, but some areas are still recovering. March 11th, 2011, remains one of the most destructive natural disasters on record. Scientists are still exploring what this catastrophe means for the rest of the world. Japan will always remember this devastating day, much like our next example, a country famous for its warm climate, beautiful beaches, and a history of deadly tsunamis. On September 28, 2018, a massive tsunami hit the Indonesian island of Sulawesi, causing extensive destruction and loss of life. Triggered by an underwater earthquake, similar to the one in Japan, this earthquake registered 7.5 on the Richter scale. The quake was so powerful that everyone felt it. Roads cracked and the landscape transformed drastically. The impact was monumental, leaving infrastructure in ruins and severely damaging coastal ports, which disrupted shipping lanes for months. Although communities had become more aware of the dangers posed by tsunamis, they still had virtually no warning and nowhere to seek refuge when the waves struck the shore. The tsunami waves, reaching heights of up to 20 feet, crashed into coastal areas, completely wiping out entire towns in their path. The tsunami left a trail of destruction, damaging or destroying thousands of homes, roads, and other infrastructure, rendering much of it unrecognizable. The The tsunami triggered a horrifying natural phenomenon known as liquefaction, where the ground transforms into a slush-like state, engulfing everything above it like quicksand. Central Sulawesi experienced significant mudflows after the earthquake, with the Pitabo sub-district, southern Palu, and the village of Balaroa being the hardest hit. In Balaroa, nearly 1,500 houses were swallowed by mud, virtually erasing the village. Over 25% of its population died, and thousands more were reported missing. The disaster displaced about 17,000 people in Palu alone, and the Indonesian National Board for Disaster Management estimated that around 2.4 million people were affected overall. The economic toll was also severe, with damages surpassing $1 billion due to disrupted trade and destroyed port facilities along Indonesia's coast. Tragically, just 2 months later, Indonesia would confront another major disaster.
Tsunami strike overseas with little warning and with more than 200 people on the northwest coast of Java, Indonesia.
This time, the disaster was sparked by a volcanic eruption that caused a part of the volcano to collapse into the sea. The tsunami that followed was generated by these volcanic flank failures. This type of tsunami was particularly hard to detect and managed to bypass conventional warning systems. It struck around 10 p.m., taking advantage of the cover of darkness to wreak havoc. Santi Spiritus is a small city on the Zaza River in central Cuba and the capital of Santi Spiritus province, with a population of about 142,000 people. A 40-year-old bridge on the outskirts of the city once connected Santi Spiritus to the small town of Zaza del Medio. However, in May 2018, a sudden flash flood washed the bridge away. A cameraman, standing on the parallel train tracks, decided to record the rushing water and captured the moment when Mother Nature almost swept 2 people away.
Esto sí es historia. Vivo, ahora sí has firmado tú algo grande en tu vida. Yo sabía que este momento no iba a llegar. ¿Viste eso?
Look how close those people came to falling in with the debris. One of them even had their foot on the collapsing piece before they scampered away. Luckily, both made it back to dry land. They'll probably never look at a bridge the same way again. The collapse was caused by one of the largest floods on the Zaza River in recent years. It was a major setback for the small town of Zaza del Medio, which relied on the bridge to connect to the main city. Otherwise, they were cut off by water to the east and south, with a dead-end road heading north into the forest. Fortunately, they still had a road leading east to the towns of Siguan and Tasco, so they weren't completely cut off from the modern world. Located in northern India, the state of Uttarakhand in the Himalayan foothills is known for its scenic beauty and vulnerability to natural disasters. The region has a large river system fed by glaciers high in the Himalayan mountains. Several hydropower stations use these rivers, with large dams generating electricity for the area. However, on February 7, 2021, a disaster struck Uttarakhand, causing massive devastation. A huge section of a Himalayan glacier broke free and fell over a mile into the canyon below. The iceberg, measuring 1,800 feet wide, crashed into the river system at 134 miles per hour, sending violent surges of water through the steep mountain gorges. This surge burst through several hydro dams, unleashing a catastrophic flood that rushed towards local villages. The impact was devastating, with entire villages being swept away or submerged. Many lives were lost, with workers trapped in tunnels. Harrowing footage showed the Topovan hydroelectric power project being hit by the surge, with workers desperately trying to escape but being swept away by the massive force of the water. Rescue and relief operations were immediately initiated, with efforts from local administration, the armed forces, and disaster management teams to rescue those trapped and recover the bodies of those who did not survive. The Uttarakhand dam disaster highlights the need to balance development with environmental concerns. The Hydroituango Dam, located on the Cauca River in Colombia, was in its final phase of construction in 2018. Standing at 225 meters tall, with 8 turbines designed to generate electricity for the region, the project was set to be completed by the end of the year. 7 years earlier, during the initial construction phase, 3 temporary diversion tunnels had been built to channel water around the dam site. These tunnels worked well, but as the project neared completion, the construction company blocked 2 of them with concrete before the emergency spillway was ready. This left only one tunnel to handle all the water, putting it under immense pressure. Unfortunately, this tunnel collapsed, causing the reservoir to fill rapidly. Heavy rains worsened the situation, threatening a potential dam breach. A state of emergency was declared, and 13,000 people living nearby were evacuated. Engineers tried to reopen the blocked tunnels with explosives, but failed. By May 10, 2018, the reservoir had reached a critical level. To prevent a breach, engineers allowed the water to flood the powerhouse, using it as a diversion pathway. This reduced the water levels but caused significant damage to the electromechanical equipment inside. The cost of the damage was immense. 2 days later, the collapsed tunnel reopened naturally, without warning, sending a torrent of water downstream. This deluge devastated towns and villages, destroying homes, schools, and infrastructure, and displacing about 25,000 people. Kyrgyzstan is a landlocked country in Central Asia, surrounded by Kazakhstan to the north, Uzbekistan to the west, and Tajikistan to the south. It has a population of about 7 million people, primarily ethnic Kyrgyz, with smaller groups of Uzbeks and Russians. Though they are a small part of the population, these Russians have played a significant role in developing hydropower. In the early 2000s, a company from Moscow named Inter-Rao took on a project on the Naran River in Kyrgyzstan. They used explosives to build a blast-filled dam for the Kambarata 2 hydroelectric power plant, and the project was very successful. Kambarata 2, also called KPP-2, started being built back in 1988. The first turbines began working in November 2010, and there have been plans to make it bigger since then. The demolition part of the project likely happened in 2013. A report says that they used 2 big explosions deep inside the mountain for this. The first explosion, which was smaller, used 700 tons of TNT to break up the rock. Then, a few seconds later, a bigger explosion with 2,300 tons of TNT completed the work. On August 17, 2009, the Sayano-Shushenskaya Dam in Russia suddenly ruptured and collapsed. As one of Russia's largest hydroelectric dams, its failure caused a catastrophic disaster. The collapse was so powerful that it killed 75 people. It destroyed equipment, heavy machinery, and 4 entire turbine halls, which then flooded and caught fire. The damage is estimated to be in the billions of dollars. The disaster also had severe environmental impacts. 30 million fish died, and several endangered bird species lost their homes. The cause of the disaster is believed to be faulty maintenance. Prior warnings about structural defects in the concrete and steel components were not addressed in time. In response, Russian officials have prioritized strengthening safety regulations for all dams. Engineers are working hard to restore power to millions of homes that have been without electricity since that day. This devastating dam failure, captured on camera, serves as a stark reminder of the importance of rigorous maintenance and safety measures. Mabianyi Autonomous County is a part of Sichuan Province and falls under the jurisdiction of Leshan City. This past Saturday, a massive landslide covered a road in the county with over 50,000 cubic meters of dirt and rocks, shocking people who saw it. The landslide also partly blocked a nearby river. After hearing about the incident, the local government sent traffic police and road maintenance teams to handle the situation. The area has been blocked off by the police, and workers are now cleaning up the debris from the road. Fortunately, no one was hurt. In northwest Baltimore, Maryland, a gas explosion occurred on Monday morning, forcing many residents to evacuate. A neighbor's Ring camera captured the initial moments of the blast. This incident underscores how sudden and disruptive such disasters can be, impacting the lives of the local community. A 4.4 magnitude earthquake hit Gilgit-Baltistan, greatly impacting the lives of people in nearby mountain areas. Large rocks fell down, creating huge clouds of dust, and the roads were covered with crumbling debris. Zhejiang Province, known as the Land of Fish and Rice for its fertile land and plentiful water, has over 27 people missing after a major landslide caused by heavy rain from Typhoon Meiji. The landslide struck Sukun village in Suichang County on Wednesday, September 28, 2016, and destroyed several buildings. While transporting a 40-foot container by crane, it fell to the ground due to an issue. Fortunately, there were no people nearby. A major rock slide was recorded in the mountains of China, where rocks weighing several tons tumbled swiftly down the slope. While most of the rocks were stopped by the river, a huge boulder crossed the river and struck the road, creating a dramatic scene similar to meteor showers. The planned road closures gave crews the chance to safely blast and remove rock from the steep mountainside. This was done to prevent natural landslides that could be dangerous. They have successfully cleared about 40,000 cubic yards of rock. A rock slide happened on the Going to the Sun Road in Glacier National Park because of a sudden rainstorm, resulting in around 12 slides and trapping several vehicles. One car was partially buried, and the person inside had minor injuries, but got out safely. We turned around, went back up the pass, and reached the east side of the park. We were stuck for about 5 hours, which was shorter than those who had to wait until the road was cleared. Highway 213 is a crucial transportation route that connects various regions and cities, supporting economic activities, goods transport, and travel across the country. On Sunday, a large landslide blocked Highway 23 in southwest China for 3 hours. The landslide occurred at 15:45, dumping about 20,000 cubic meters of mud onto the road and completely stopping traffic. Excavation equipment was used to clear the blockage, and by 18:30, traffic was back to normal. Thankfully, no injuries or missing persons were reported. On the west coast of the Taiwan Strait, Fujian is closest to Taiwan in both geography and culture. A video captured a landslide in Fujian, where large amounts of mud and boulders came crashing down the mountain, dangerously close to a residential area. The footage shows the mountainside collapsing near tall buildings, followed by floodwaters that carried away parked cars. Thankfully, there were no reported injuries, but the damage to property was severe. The road from Rishikesh to Badrinath, running through the Himalayan foothills, features steep slopes, sharp curves, and narrow sections. This area is known for frequent rockfalls and landslides. Recently, a landslide occurred on the Rishikesh-Badrinath Road near Bayasi in the Teri Garhwal district of Uttarakhand. Photos from the scene show a large amount of debris falling from a nearby cliff onto the highway. Thankfully, no casualties have been reported so far. The Rishikesh-Badrinath Road often sees landslides, especially during the rainy season, with another incident happening just last week. On February 18, 2024, coastal erosion in Dorset was highlighted again when part of the cliffs collapsed into Lorth Cove.
Oh, wow.
Local media reported that cliff slides are common in the area. Fortunately, no injuries were reported in this recent incident at Dorset Beach. Look at how scary this scene is. It seems like the crane couldn't support the excessive weight, which caused it to tilt sideways and collapse. Fortunately, there were no serious injuries reported, which is definitely a relief. This is especially true considering how quickly things could have turned much worse. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can stay updated with our latest videos.